Welcome to another premiere, where, of course, we're extremely serious and always to the point, such as what's in the shot right now. None other than the amazing, the extraordinary, the Viking Husqvarna Type 8E, which was first introduced by way of the Class 8 in 1959, and later the 8E took the form of the machine as you see it now around 1961 and continued to be produced until the latter 1960s, early 1970s. This machine has been specifically prepared for Paula Mazour from the great state of Minnesota. And of course, having a machine of royal roots, we have to look at it with a great deal of dignity, which is why I chose to show you the size, the breadth, the scope of the extension bed using none other than Oreo cookies. Now, since we are in a classroom, as I might illustrate, it behooves us to understand the particulars of not only the history of the sewing machine before us, but certainly those delectable, delightful little chocolate wonders that span across the extension bed of this glorious and glamorous machine. Yes. So, the first Oreo was sold on March 6th, 1912, to a grocer in Hoboken, New Jersey. The Oreo biscuit was renamed in 1921 to Oreo sandwich. In 1948, the name was changed to Oreo cream sandwich, and in 1974, it became the Oreo chocolate sandwich cookie, the name that has remained to this very day. Yeah. Not to mention, they're just fun to eat as project break type treats. And any of you that occasionally will sneak some Oreos into your sewing space and munch on them while working on a particular project, confess it now, confess it to your friends in this circle of trust and type it in the chat. Yeah, do that right now while I pick out another piece of music that will set the mood for us to check out. Wait, that's not very formal, I'm sorry. For us to explore and delve into the adventures of this incredible Husqvarna Viking, or Viking Husqvarna, Type 8E, that again hails from right around the 1960s. Yeah. And again, this is prepared specifically for Paula Mazour from Minnesota. Isn't that a pretty name, Mazour? Yeah, I just want to say it again and again and again. But actually what I want to do is I want to pick out some music, move those Oreos to a discrete location, and probably munch on one or two during the course of this premiere. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's pick out another piece of music to illustrate just how proper and polished we are in this classroom. This one that we're playing next is called The Throne. The one before that was called Far Behind. Here we go. Yeah. Let's get some lights on. Lights on the situation, please. Oh, yeah. That is just a beautiful sight. Yeah, any of you want to take a screenshot, I totally get it. I totally get it. All right. And don't count them because I might sneak a couple. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. There's 5. There's 6. There's 7. 8. So if you've ever wondered how long the bed of a Husqvarna Viking green machine is, well, now you know. It's a total of 8 Oreos. Yes, 8 Oreos. Now you might be saying, since you are very inquisitive students, okay, now we know that the bed length of a Viking Husqvarna green machine is 8 Oreos. Well, what does that really translate to? Well, let's see. Okay, so let's see here. Hold on a second. Okay. If anyone wants to do the math, an Oreo is 45 millimeters in circumference, 45 millimeters, okay? Across, the spans, the width, blah, blah, blah. So you simply take 45 times 8, and it will tell you how long the green machine extension bed is. So do that now. Whoever posts it first is my favorite student. 45 millimeters times 8. There you go. Wait. Hold on a second. Well. So now we only have 7, but that's okay. We only have 7 Oreos left. But you can still do the math, right? Okay, good. So post that in the chat. If you get it posted first, you are, in fact, my favorite student. Yes, you are. All right, so Paula doesn't freak out. I'm wiping off any of the Oreo juices. I don't think there's juice in Oreos, is there? No. And also showing you that I had a little bit of fun off camera. Not a lot, a little. And what I sewed is some of this genuine cowhide. You can see the one on top is 2 thicknesses, probably about 6 to 8 ounces of leather. The one on the bottom is a single layer, about 3 to 4 ounces of genuine cowhide. And this Type 8E from the 1960s was able to do the job very, very, very easily. Very easily. All right, so the last one we played again is called The Throne. The next one is called Wedding Invitation. Wedding Invitation. We've heard this one before. Oh yeah, that's lovely. So you can see the stitch quality even from this distance right here. Absolutely spot on. Spectacular. So I'm going to throw these to the rear and let's jump into some sewing without further ado. Yeah. And we are going to start with none other than some genuine elk hide. Genuine elk hide. Yeah. Let's see how this Type 8E does with a task like this. We'll start with a single layer, then we'll add the second layer to it and see how this fabulous machine does. Here we go. I just bumped my heater up. It's a little bit chilly down in the workshop today. Actually, let me go with a smaller piece here. Let's do that. All right, so a single layer of genuine elk hide, about, probably about 3 to 4 ounces, with Paula's Type 8E. Here we go. Yeah, that was no challenge. That was no challenge at all, not even remotely. But that's okay. We will be challenging Paula's machine during the course of this premiere. Yes, we will. All right, let's give that a clip. Let's give that a clip. See if I can get my garbage can within reach. Although I've got my baby garbage can too. None of you, I think, have seen this really. But this is my baby garbage can that I have for dropping threads into, so I don't need to reach over and drop it in the big garbage can. Sounds like a superpower almost, doesn't it? So here is our first stitch off with this genuine elk hide. I'll show you the single layer first, again about 3 to 4 ounces. Let's just go ahead and do the wedding invitation one more time because it's lovely. Isn't it? Isn't it lovely? Type in the chat if you think that song is lovely. All right, here we go again. Any of you that think that Scott is acting a little bit silly today, the answer is yes, indeed. All right, let's take a look at these stitches a little bit closer up. Again, you can see that top edge right there of the leather, how thick that is. About 4 ounces. Nothing easy peasy. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on! Lovely, lovely, lovely stitching. Okay, let's come out on this shot a little bit. And we're going to add that second layer now of this genuine elk hide. Once my camera decides it's going to stop dancing. It is kind of dancing music though, a little bit, sort of. All right, let's go ahead and add that second layer. And I'm going to put them back to back so that we'll be able to see that stitching more clearly. That's what 2 layers of genuine elk hide look like, okay? So we've already laid down our first one. We're going to lay down our next stitch line right over here, and then we'll be able to observe the lock stitch on the back of it. So on this side, we're going to have 2 rows of top stitching. On the other side, we're going to have only 1 row of lock stitch. All right. And for any of you that were saying, I hope he does the next sew off with no music, guess what? You got your wish. All right, so here goes 2 layers of genuine elk hide. Here we go. Slow it down, slow it down. Show that control, show that control. Beautiful job, beautiful job. Okay, so let's go ahead and clip that. And we'll clip that. So again, we're only going to have 1 row of lock stitching on the back of these 2 layers. This side that's pointing up right now, we're going to have 2 rows to represent those top stitches. So let's see how we did with this type 8E from the 1960s. Again, it was debuted right around 1959, if I remember correctly. Right around 1959 as a Class 8. No, I'm not taking any more Oreos right now, but I do have those in the, just off camera, in case I get a little bit of munchy going on. All right, let me zoom in on these. And then we will talk about the stitches and which row we did first. I've got to peek on the back just real quick to make sure that I'm going to be correct. Okay, so the top row right now, the top row of stitching is the second stitch off that we did through 2 layers. The bottom row of stitching is the first stitch off we did. So we're going to kind of go across those nice and slow. Well, I don't know what you're seeing from your end, but those are absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitches. Both the top row, which again is our row going through 2 layers, and our bottom row going through a single layer. And if you look at the totality of the stitching for these top stitches, wait, reverse that. If you look at these 2 rows of top row stitching, or top stitching, yeah, one of those 2. These are the top stitches, okay? They're the top stitches. They absolutely look spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, the presentation of the stitch is exactly what you would want to have on your product if you were selling a product and using this machine to do that stitching. The stitching is just, it presents beautifully. So let's see if we turn it over. Let's see how that lock stitch presents. Again, the lock stitch is always going to be more difficult for the machine to generate because it's having to pull that thread back up through those 2 layers of genuine elk hide. And so you're fighting gravity, you're fighting viscosity and resistance of the leather as that thread is being pulled up through the 2 layers. It just makes it a lot tougher when you're having to define or get a defined lock stitch. But I don't think with this Type 8E we're going to have any difficulty whatsoever. And I might not have exactly the perfect angle, but let me kind of change my camera shot a little bit so you can see again the thickness of what we went through. There, right there, you can see that 8 to 10 ounces of genuine elk hide. And as I zoom back in again and we go across these stitches, you're going to see just beautiful stitch presentation, stitch formation, stitch definition, exactly as we want to be seeing. And if we come out on the shot, and I might reposition that leather just slightly, it's kind of curled around a little bit. But as we come out on the shot, you can see again just how spectacular that lock stitch is. Again, the lock stitch is always going to be tougher. That's why the majority of the time when you see people selling machines, presenting machines, etc., you're going to notice that they will show the top stitch, but they seldom, if ever, show the lock stitch, because the lock stitch is so much more difficult for the machine to generate. Especially when you're talking sewing at this level right here, where you're going through about 10 ounces of chemically processed elk hide. Elk hide is not just standard leather, it's been chemically processed, which right away is going to raise the threshold significantly as far as the piercing threshold of that material. It's going to make it super tough to get through it, even with a nice sharp Schmetz needle. But as we zoom in, again, you want to look at the clarity of the stitch and the beauty of the stitch. It's just absolutely spot on. And again, this is the lock stitch going through 2 layers of genuine elk hide. So this is a definite pass. I'm going to go ahead and move that to the rear right after I pick out another piece of music. And this one will be by Mozart. Yeah, you may have heard this one before, huh? Alright, so again, 2 layers of genuine elk hide. Paula's Type 8E from the 1960s has done just a spot-on job. Spot-on job with both this lock stitch right here and the 2 rows of top stitching. So I'm going to throw it to the rear. So I'll make 2 piles, one for the ones I did off camera, one's for the ones I did on camera. And what we're going to sew now is some more leather, and this is going to be protected full grain leather. Protected full grain leather is super tricky stuff to sew because it's got a little bit of a slickness to it. It's got a slipperiness to it, almost like sewing alligator. And again, because of the way it's processed and made, that piercing threshold on protected full grain leather like this is always going to be tougher than a standard leather type material. And a single layer is going to be probably right around 3 ounces. So we're going to be sewing several layers of this and just see how Paula's machine does. But first of all, let me real quick, because it's such a quick trip around this machine, take you around this machine. The first thing you're going to notice is it highlights the fact that this is a rotary style machine, which means unlike an oscillating hook system that agitates back and forth, the rotary is going to go full circle as it's sewing. And that's a good and that's a bad thing. It's going to generate some real great stitches, but it's also going to really make it critical that that machine is running at the top of its game as far as function and timing. Otherwise, you're going to get skip stitches and you're going to get other challenges like that. So the rotary model, again, I think is a fabulous model that Husqvarna Viking came up with. This is going to be to drop our feed dogs. This right here is going to allow us to set stitch length, and also if we move this all the way to the top, to back tack or sew in reverse. And apart from that, that's about the extent of the machine. It really is a quilter's dream machine, very much like that Slant-O-Matic 404 that I just offered for donation to help out the folks at the History Museum for our fundraiser. That again, if you didn't follow all of that, our fundraiser ended with raising $10,100, and that occurred in only 10 days. So if you average it out, that means that we were generating, through the generosity of our donors, approximately $1,000 a day during the course of that 10-day fundraiser. That is crazy, considering it's happening during the course of a pandemic, and an extended pandemic on top of that. So you'll want to check those premieres and videos out if you didn't watch them yet, just to see what an extraordinary achievement that was, and just how excited I am and proud I am of our friends, our followers, my fans that just really rallied to make that happen. All right, blah, blah, blah. I know I'm getting off track. It's what I do. All right. So let's zoom back down to the needle, and we're going to sew a little bit of this protected full grain leather. Again, some real tricky stuff. Tends to be a little bit slippery. It tends to also have a much higher piercing threshold because of the way the leather is processed and produced. So we're going to be sewing 2 layers of this. I could certainly go higher, but again, the goal of these premieres is not to show the max of the machine. It's to show you what the machine is able to do and lay down gorgeous drop dead stitches. So let me fold it in half, and I'll show you the side of that so you can get an idea of what we're going to be sewing. It's not quite as thick. It's not going to be as thick as that elk hide for sure, but it's still going to really do, I think, an excellent job of testing this Type 8E to see how it does sewing a very, very challenging leather like this protected full grain leather. So we're going to go down and around, and we'll see how this machine does. All right, presser foot is down. Take-up arm is at the highest position. I've got to adjust my chair just a little bit, which I think this thing is losing air. It's kind of sinking a little bit. So if you could see me in the shot, I'm probably getting shorter by the second. Mayday, mayday, mayday. All right, here we go. 2 layers of protected full grain leather with Paula's Type 8E. All right, here we go. All right. That is once I get my foot all the way on the foot controller. All right, let's make our turn. Like I said, this is tricky stuff to sew, so the machine may have to work a little bit harder to get this job done. Plus, it's extremely cold right now down in the workshop because of our sub-zero temperatures. So machines also don't like to be cold, just like people. They don't like to be cold. All right, so we made our turn. I'm gonna lay down our stitch row, and then we're gonna race down to the finish with this Type 8E. Here we go. All right, let's get that needle down. And we'll head down to the finish with Paula's Type 8E. Here we go. And I'm really metering out that power right now on this Type 8E. The Type 8E is going to have a slightly smaller motor than some of the other green machines. It's going to have a 1 amp motor, and we'll see that when we kind of look around the machine a little bit. But don't let that deceive you. The 1 amp Swedish-made motor is going to put out at about the same level when it's been optimized as the 1.5. There's not going to be a noticeable difference. And that's all in the preparation of the machine, and that's all in my process. Again, a Swedish Beauty, if you're new to this channel, a Swedish Beauty is going to go through 126 steps of confirmation before I approve it to come to a premiere like this. So Paula's machine has been run through the races, through all kinds of testing and evaluations before we got to this stage of the premiere. And that's just the way I do my Swedish Beauties. I don't know of anyone else in the world that prepares them to that depth and extent of running them through basically a 126 step checklist before they are good to go to come to this stage of doing the premiere. Okay, so let's go ahead and close the box for our box closers, and we'll check out the stitches after that. Here we go. All right, bring that back up and let's go ahead and check these out. And I really, out of the green machines, I really do like these Rotary style straight stitch only machines. They really do a fabulous job in kind of like the Featherweight, in specializing in a certain type of stitch instead of trying to cram a lot of stitch options into a single machine. They're gonna do the job. They're gonna do it extremely well. And again, for those quilters that are looking to do quilt blocks and other things like that, they are going to absolutely adore this Swedish Beauty because it is so particular in how it executes that straight stitch. So I've gotten out my stitch off holder that my friend from Florida, Maddie, had sent me. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in on these stitches, and we will check them out. So again, we just listened to some Mozart, and I think I'll put on another piece as we're looking at these stitches. Here we go. This one is called Habanero. Habanero. Here we go. Oh yeah, we know this song. Okay, as you're listening to this song, as we're starting to look at these stitches, which are wow, tell me what style of dance would accompany this type of song or music? Come on, you guys know this. You guys are sophisticates. What style of dance would accompany this style of music? All right, let's look at these stitches, which through this protected full grain leather is just wow. Page 34, first edition. Even on that turn right there. Wow. Yeah, perfect timing as we were coming around that corner right there. The music hit a climax and it was like, yeah. So again, protected full grain leather. Look at those stitches. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's go ahead and look at the totality of the stitching. Bring it right to there and I'll kind of lock it in place. Those are absolutely spot on. If you were looking for making a product with a gorgeous top stitch, there it is. And the music was perfect again right there. Ba 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 ba, yeah. So, a brilliant job on the part of Paula's Type 8E. So let me flip it around. Let's look at the lock stitch. Yeah, right there. Music ended right as we turned it over, like, yeah, show me the lock stitch. So we'll start looking right there, and that is absolutely what we want to be seeing. The stitch formation, the stitch spacing is spot on. We come right over to here, start working our way across. Very, very good looking stitch. Very good looking stitch. Again, protected full grain leather is a tricky leather. It's slippery, and it tends to try to mess around with you as you're trying to sew and lay down stitches. It tries to distort stitches, it tries to cause skip stitching, but it failed. It failed in its mission to try to mess us up on these 2 layers of protected full grain leather. It absolutely failed its mission. And as we come out and look at the totality of the stitching on this lock stitch, folks, it just, let me come out there. It just doesn't get any better than that. I mean, that is a page 34 first edition without a doubt. As you look at the stitches, they present beautifully. They're even, they're consistent, no skip stitches. The presentation of the stitch is exactly what we want to be seeing. And this is the lock stitch. Like I've said before, executing a top stitch that's, quality, it's not as difficult of a task when you compare it to executing a lock stitch for all the reasons that I already mentioned. So this is a definite pass for Paula's Type 8E. I'm going to throw this to the back. Again, 2 layers of protected full grain leather with absolutely page 34 stitching. So wonderful job. I'm going to throw that to the back with our genuine elk hide. And I'll move this off to the side as well. So I think what we're going to sew next, just because I've gotten some real good feedback from folks on it, and it's not just the vegan folks that give me good feedback on it, it's everyone. They like to see the vegan style leather. And they like to see the vegan style leather because it's not only showing you how the machine manages the leather aspect of the material, but it's also showing you how it manages a leather vinyl type blend. A leather vinyl type blend, which is what vegan leather is. It's leather and vinyl kind of blended together. So you already know how tricky it is to sew vinyl. Vinyl is incredibly tricky when it comes to trying to distort, manipulate stitches. So when we can lay down good stitches on this vegan leather, it really is highlighting just how well Paula's Type 8E is performing. Absolutely. So that was habanero, and I don't know if you typed it in the chat or not as far as the style of the dance, the type of dance that you would do to that style of music, but hopefully you got it. Hopefully you nailed it. And we'll go on to our next one. The next one is called Concierge. Concierge, which obviously is a French word. And it's kind of shocking when you look at the roots of what, if you go back to the deepest roots of the word concierge, what is the literal translation of the word concierge? It literally means, and this is what it means, I'm not making this up, it literally means paid servant, or some people would argue that it's translated to mean paid slave. Paid servant, paid slave. However one agrees to interpret it, it basically means that a concierge is constantly under the demand and the command and the wants of whoever they're serving. They're constantly needing to be ready to meet the needs of that individual. I mean, they're never off the clock. They're on the clock forever. So that's part of the reason they translate the word from French like that. So if you didn't know that, you do now. So this is concierge. Which I'm going to turn down quite a bit, because Because that one just blasted us, didn't it? It's like, whoa, slow down, buddy, slow down. All right, so this is Concierge, a much quieter Concierge, thankfully. All right, so let's do some of this vegan leather. We'll do a single layer down, and then we will probably do 2 layers of it. But part of what I want to show you on this vegan leather is I also want to show you some control. So we're probably going to sew this using Paula's slow gear. We'll go down and around and see how that slow gear allows us to manage things a little bit better. It gives us more control as we're trying to sew a tricky material and we're trying to get down and make those turns, etc. All right, are you ready? Of course you are. So here goes a single layer of vegan style leather. Isn't that slow gear spectacular? And what I do when I'm engaging and disengaging the slow gear, because it works by doing a gear ratio reduction. And so it will lock up that needle bar sometimes, and the easiest way to manage it is to disengage it while you're making a turn like that, which I did off camera, and then once you get your material positioned underneath the presser foot appropriately, then you go ahead and re-engage that slow gear again to complete your turn. So right now, if I'm trying to turn the balance wheel, it kind of sticks because it's in that low gear. But if I disengage the slow gear just temporarily, it'll allow me to rotate that down very nicely. And then I can go ahead and get my needle positioned the way I want it, re-engage the slow gear, just lift up my presser foot, rotate the material around, and then go ahead and sew off this final line. And I'm not going to close the box. I'll sew off this final line using Paula's slow gear. Here we go. And again, the slow gear does not increase the motor strength. What it does is it uses a gear reduction, very much like a 10-speed bike, to take that gear ratio down so that you're getting fewer revolutions of sewing. It's taking you basically from full power down to 1/5 of the normal speed, which gives you a huge amount of control as you're sewing. All right, here we go. So again, what I'm doing right now is I'm disengaging my slow gear. Now I'm going to rotate that needle up so that it's clear of the material, and we'll have a chance to check out that stitching now finally. And that's just a little trick, because when you're working with a system like this one or other green machines where you're able to get that gear reduction to slow the motor down as far as revolutions and speed, it really is essential that you not try to force it with the balance wheel or anything like that until that gear is freely moving. Otherwise you could damage the machine. So that little trick that I just described to you will ensure that you're able to make those transitions without potentially damaging your machine. All right, so let's get that out of the way. Oh, those are beautiful. Those are lovely. Let's take a look at those too. We'll set those up on our stitch off holder. And we will pick out another tune as we're doing this. So this next one is going to be called Hungry for Disaster. It's kind of a rock feeling to it, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Hungry for disaster. Yeah, that kind of fits the song, doesn't it? All right, let's take a look at these stitches. And I think we're probably able to look at them both at the same time because I sewed them pretty close together. And again, we did this with the slow gear so we would have more control. Absolutely gorgeous. Let me leave it right there for a second once I get this thing to stay in its position. And I'm going to angle that just a little bit more. There we go. All right, let's take a look at these again. We'll kind of go back the other way now. So what I'm seeing, other than, you know, I kind of did a dipsy doodle there as I was coming, kind of made a little hill. But the stitch formation, the stitch quality, the stitch presentation, absolutely spot on. Really, really lovely stitching. And even from a distance, because I have kind of a long piece, even from a distance you're able to see the clarity of that stitch and the beauty of that stitch is just absolutely spectacular. So let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch now. Again, the lock stitch is always going to be tougher for a machine to execute with precision and quality because of all the things that I've mentioned before, the gravity factor, the drag or the viscosity of pulling that thread back up through the layer of that vegan style leather, again a blend of leather and vinyl. So for all those reasons, it's going to make it a lot tougher for that machine to, you know, to do a quality lock stitch. But it's no problem at all for Paula's machine. Just look at that. Without a doubt, that's a page 34 lock stitch. Absolutely spot on. And again, vinyl is going to inherently, it's going to distort and try to manipulate the formation of that stitch. But again, because of my painstaking process of preparing this machine, again, 126 steps, folks. The result is Paula's Type 8E just slammed it, just did a phenomenal job. I'll kind of do it from there because the totality of the stitching from this distance with the lock stitch is a little bit tough to see. Maybe not on the big screen once we view this live, but right now through my little screen as I'm watching it, it's quite a bit harder to see. But that is just a phenomenal lock stitch. It absolutely is. If I lock my camera, it absolutely is what we want to be seeing. So I'm going to throw that to the rear as well. And again, this is only a single layer. It's only a single layer of this vegan style leather. But even a single layer, because of that vinyl aspect in it, it's going to really, really raise the stakes. And now we're going to make it even tougher. We're going to try doing 2 layers of this vegan style leather. And we'll probably just sew it with regular speed. But as you look at this stuff, if I kind of bring the camera in on it, I mean, you'd have to really know that this is vegan style leather and not 100% leather by looking at this, because I mean, it really does mirror and match it beautifully. Even the grain, if I turn it over, look at the grain on this. It's going to have a leather grain to it, just as you would see with a genuine cowhide or protected full grain leather, Italian leather, vegetable tan leather. It's going to really mimic it beautifully. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half, give us 2 layers of this vegan leather. We'll get it underneath the presser foot, and then we're going to sew this at regular speed. I'm not going to use the slow gear. We're going to go down and around, and we'll see how this Type 8E does sewing some real tricky vegan style leather like this once I get my camera lined up correctly. You can even see how that, you can tell right away that it's got some vinyl in it because of the way it kind of presses that material up. It doesn't lay flat like you would normally see with a standard type leather. It's going to pucker it up. It's going to make it real tough not only in piercing it, but it's going to make it really tough from a standpoint of feeding it over the feed dogs as well. It's going to make it real tricky. Okay, so a little bit of soft music in the background. This is going to be concert for bass, classical rousing. And I'll turn the volume way down. All right, so let's see how Paula's machine does with 2 layers of this vegan style leather. I'm going to try to get it to lay down as nicely as I can as we stitch this first row going down this tricky stuff. Also, I'm going to get my take-up arm all the way up. All right, here we go. And again, we're going to be doing this at regular speed. I'll try to meter it out. I'll try to regulate it because I will not have the benefit of the slow gear on this sew off. Here we go. All right, that actually worked very nicely. I was able to get my foot positioned well on the presser foot. I was able to get my foot positioned real well on the foot controller. I will not put my foot on the presser foot, I promise. And the result is we've got what is a very, very nice looking stitch. I'm just going to try to get that take-up arm just slightly up so I can launch a little bit easier going into this turn. All right, here we go. All right, get that down. And let's go down to the finish. We are not going to close the box. I'm going to go down and, again, we've got a very long piece of material here, so it's going to take us a little bit to get down to the finish line. Here we go. And just listen to the, just listening to the running of this Type 8E. It just runs beautifully. I do favor a little bit the rotary hook versus the oscillating hook. They both have pluses and minuses, but when it comes to the quietness of the machine with a rotary versus an oscillating hook, I think, for me at least, being this close to the machine, you can notice a difference. If I'm sewing on a machine like this with a rotary style hook versus, say, sewing on a 1591 that's going to have an oscillating hook, you're gonna hear the loudness factor being different between those two machines, I think, very easily. So let's line this up again. We did 2 layers of this vegan style leather, combination of leather and vinyl. Tricky stuff, super tricky stuff to sew, in my opinion. And I think we'll listen to that concert for bass just one more time as we're looking at these stitches. Well, without even moving the camera, just take a look at those. Folks, that is, if you were opening up your textbook in this class right now, and you were saying, okay, I want to, Scott is always talking about a stitch that is page 34. First edition, when it's really extraordinary. This is, right now as we're looking at them, this top stitch that we just laid down, these 2 rows, is absolutely page 34, first edition. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of that stitch is just absolutely spot on. So let's work across these 2 rows because I think they're going to be close enough together we can do that. Even our end cap row right there, as I finished that turn and I went to make my next row down, where sometimes those stitches can get a little bit misaligned, a little bit distorted. Those are absolutely, as I stop talking so I don't keep jiggling the camera, those are absolutely as they should be. Absolutely as they should be. So let's work our way across now and look at these 2 rows at the same time. And I'm intentionally not talking because see what happens when I start talking? The camera vibrates. Let's go back again. I'm kind of going down here because I'm getting a little bit of a light reflection when I saw that bottom row, so I wanted to show it to you separately. Wow. Wow! So let's come out here and look at the totality of the stitching, which takes quite a bit of zooming out to get to that because of how long of a piece of material I chose to cut for this sew-off. But as you look at those stitches, that is absolutely page 34, first edition. The stitch formation, the spacing, the integrity of the stitch, the presentation of the stitch, as I sometimes say in my funny voice, the glory of the stitch is just absolutely what we want to see in this classroom. And my 126 step process evidences itself right here also as we turn it over to survey that lock stitch. Once I get that material to be nice and to stop trying to move. Alright, that's about as good as I can get it right there. Hopefully that's going to be lined up pretty well. And this again is our lock stitch. This is our lock stitch. So we're kind of doing it in reverse right here. We're looking at the totality of the lock stitch, which even from this distance is wow. Wow! Now if we start on this end and go in reverse in a sense, look at that stitching as we go across. And again, I'm intentionally not talking so I don't vibrate the camera. And then we'll look at this bottom row by itself because it gets a little bit of light reflection on there that kind of makes it difficult to see the stitch quality. And again, this is not a single layer of this leather vinyl blend, which I refer to as vegan leather. This stuff is super tricky, even with a single layer. And we just did 2 layers of it, which is probably going to be about 5 ounces. It's a fairly thin material, but again, with it being comprised of leather and vinyl, even though it's thin, don't be deceived by that. It's incredibly tricky stuff to sew, incredibly tricky stuff, especially when we don't tap into that slow gear to basically gear that motor down to slow the speed of the motor so that we can have better control. When we sew it at regular speed and we're metering it out with that foot controller, we've got to really manage that machine well in order to get a result like this, which is absolutely spot on. And again, this is our lock stitch. We already looked at our top stitch, which is equally, wow, spectacular. So I'm going to throw this to the back. Again, this is our 2 layers of vegan style leather that we just, I mean, this Type 8E just walked over this stuff like it was walking through the park. Just phenomenal job. Very impressed. So we're going to move on to now some commercial grade canvas. Canvas is, as you know, for those of you that sew with it, it's a very tricky material to sew. The composition of it, the weave of it, the blending of it, just how they make this stuff. It's built for strength, and when something is built for strength, it means the piercing threshold is going to be through the roof on it. And we're going to be doing several layers of this. I haven't decided yet whether we're going to do 4 or 6, but whether it's 4 or 6, let it suffice to say it is going to definitely test Paula's machine from a strength standpoint, from a sewing standpoint, from a manageability standpoint, you're going to see. You're going to be able to hear that machine working harder too. So on this sew off, I'm going to leave the music completely off, even though I love to have music in the background, as you know. And when I keep it real soft, it doesn't take anything away from the machine, in my opinion. But in this instance, we'll just have complete silence in the workshop so you can really listen to Paula's machine working. So if I fold it in half like this, we obviously are starting with 2 layers of this commercial grade canvas. And again, having worked with US Army grade canvas a lot on this channel, I can tell you this commercial grade canvas is even more of a challenge for the machine when it comes to getting through it. So 2 layers would be enough. If I fold it once, kind of about midway, it gets us up to 4 layers, and that's what that's going to look like. And then if I fold it one more time, it's going to get us all the way up to 6 layers. And I didn't test this yet. I did not test this yet, so if I either can't fit it underneath the presser foot, I should be able to get it underneath there easily, because the presser foot clearance on a Type 8E, like most of the green machines, is going to be quite excellent. It's going to be quite good. But 6 layers of this stuff, that's just a new level of crazy. It really is. It truly is. And again, with the Type 8E rotary version machine that we're working with right now, unlike some of the other green machines, you are going to have a hyperextension if you need it. See me apply it right there? Probably getting another 3 to 4 millimeters of clearance. So clearance wise, we should be good to go. When it comes to getting through this stuff and being able to maintain stitch integrity, that's where we're going to see whether I bit off more than I should have chewed. Because 6 layers of this stuff, that is raising that bar quite a bit higher. Quite a bit higher. Alright, so presser foot is down. Off camera, I'm just going to do a real modest adjustment on presser foot pressure to see if I can just push that up a little bit. Just test this real quick. Again, the thicker the materials you're working with, let me just pull that out real quick. The thicker the materials you're working with, the more you want to increase your presser foot pressure. And sometimes it really is kind of a hit and miss. If you're working with a new type of material, if you're working with a material as far as increasing the layers beyond what you normally sew, then you're going to find that you sometimes have underestimated how much presser foot pressure you need, and the result will be that you'll get kind of inconsistency in how the stitches will present. In other words, some will be shorter, some will be a little bit longer. That's not the fault of the machine, that's the fault of the operator in not fine-tuning that presser foot pressure enough to ensure that there's enough pressure down with the presser foot pushing the material into those feed dogs to feed it evenly. If you get uneven feed, the result is you get uneven stitches. Some are longer, some are shorter. You also get feed factors that can result in skip stitches. You can get feed factors as far as needle distortion and breaking the needle. So all kinds of things can go south if that presser foot pressure is not set appropriately. And because I did not off camera sew 6 layers of this commercial grade canvas, we may get one of those things that occur. And if we do, it does. I mean, it is what it is. It happens. So I'm going to take it fairly slow. As a matter of fact, I'll probably see if I can employ my slow gear to sew this stuff so that we really can control that speed factor and be less likely to break a needle, give those feed dogs a little bit more of an opportunity to move this very thick 6 layers of commercial grade canvas over the feed dogs, and hopefully we end up getting a better product. It may not be perfect because, again, if I were all day long, if I were sewing between, say, 6 to 8 layers of commercial grade canvas, I would know what those settings are and I would get it down to a science. But I'm just trying this as we do in live premieres. I'm trying it just off the cuff to test this Type 8E. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. You know what I mean? It is what it is. It's one of the things that happens when you're sewing with a live premiere. You're trying things, and sometimes the outcome is just spot on. Sometimes it's a little bit spot off. So let's see what happens. And I'm also going to have to maybe give it a little bit of a hand start so that I can control the speed, but at the same time, I can also control the launch as well. All right, here we go. Blah, blah, blah. So again, what I just did is I disengaged my slow gear. Now I've gotten my needle back down so we can make our turn. I'm re-engaging the slow gear, raising my presser foot. And we're going to go ahead and finish our turn here. And then we'll head down to the finish. And we'll see how we did. Again, I did this off the cuff. I did not sew this many layers of commercial grade canvas off camera. So we'll wait and see what we get. Like they say, we'll see what we get, and we won't throw a fit. Here we go. All right, down to the finish. Here we go. And we are not going to close the box. Okay, presser foot is up. Let's go ahead and check these stitches out. That was an extraordinarily difficult sew off. Canvas, even a few layers of canvas, will really test a machine. But when you get to this level, where you're sewing 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, I mean, we are then in the space of sewing what typically you would see in a light industrial or lower end commercial grade type sew off. I mean, literally in a factory where they're making products like heavy tents or something, you're going to be sewing stuff like this. You're not typically going to be sewing it in a setting like this strictly to test the strength of that motor. I mean, you're just not. I mean, look at that from the side. Look at what we just sewed. 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, folks. That is nuts. But you know what? Nuts is what my specialty is, because it really shows that confidence factor when it comes to what the machine is capable of doing after going through my process. So let's take a look at these stitches now. And I've got to real quick check something. Okay, I was showing you the lock stitch first. Let me flip it like this. Now we're looking at what I believe is the top stitch. This should be the top stitch. So let's take a look at this and see how this fantastic Swedish beauty did. It is not easy, folks. It is not easy at all to execute this level of sewing. And yet, as we look at those stitches, wow. So a little bit of a variant right there. Can you see that one right in the middle of the screen almost? A little bit of a variant right there where as that material was being fed over the feed dogs, that one turned out to be a little bit shorter, just slightly shorter because of a feed factor. So that tells us that when we're sewing at this level, even though I increased the presser foot pressure. If we wanted absolute consistency each and every time, we would have to go even higher than we are right now. But going through that density of 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, we did not have a single missed stitch. As a matter of fact, I haven't done this during this premiere. There's sort of the totality of the stitching right there. But then I'm going to come off the tripod and we're going to get closer to these, especially as we look at turning it over to go to that lock stitch. So bear with me for a second here, because I really want to get to this stuff close, because out of any of the sew-offs that we're going to do today, this is probably going to be one of the toughest ones that we're going to be doing, quite honestly. So we'll just kind of get the right angle here so we can look at these stitches. And sometimes the right angle is looking at it from the side like this, kind of down. You see that? Where those were not horribly visible before, now you can look at that, those stitches on the end of the sew-off run that I'm focused on right now, and you can see just how spot on they are. Sometimes when you're looking at the wrong angle, you can't see that definition. Now here again, we've got a real good angle to look at those stitches. And you get to see how fabulous they are. I mean, they're just absolutely fabulous. Now as I turn it, because now we're going to be looking at that lock stitch, what are we going to see? Again, the lock stitch is harder. It's going to be a lot more tricky to get a quality lock stitch. And yet look at this. Folks, that's page 34. That's page 34, first edition. Other than on that one stitch where we had a slight anomaly, where you could see there was a slight feed factor loss, it allowed just a slight shortening of that stitch when we looked at that top stitch. Now we're looking at these together, and I'm seeing on a lock stitch, which is horribly difficult to execute properly through canvas alone, let alone when you get to 6 layers. And now all of a sudden you're seeing stitch quality that is absolutely through the roof. We can look at it like this too. Just trying to get the right angle, you know. That's a pretty doggone good angle right there. So again, this is our lock stitch, folks. We look at it like this, we can also see the definition on that turn too. And again, we're talking 6 layers of this commercial grade canvas. That is a new level of crazy. And I want to say this for the record. What we just did, and again, you can see the thickness and the stitches on that row at the same time. What we just did with Paula's machine with absolute ease, you could not do that on the majority of Type 8Es that are out there. They would bog down. They would not have this stitch quality. They would not execute with the ease that Paula's machine did. I mean, let's just face it, folks. This is not the norm. This is showing you a machine that has been optimized and is running at the peak of what you would expect a machine to be doing coming out of this workshop. That is absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. So is this a pass? Type in the chat if you think that what I've shown you with the stitch quality, the thickness of what we just did with this 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, if this is a pass, type in the chat pass. Type in the word pass, or a smiley face, or whatever you want to do, because I'm definitely going to give it a pass. And if you don't give it a pass, then you come to the workshop and you show me a machine, a Type 8E that can sew at a higher level than this. It ain't going to happen. But with that said, you are both students and teachers. So as fellow teachers, take time to type into the chat if you feel this is a pass. I'm going to throw it to the back. For me, it's a pass without a doubt. Without a doubt. So let's go back up to the tripod. We'll pick out a little bit more music. After I show you this original brochure that came with this machine, again, it's an original owner machine. And here, this beautiful Swedish gal, who I think is cuter than a bug's ear, whatever that means. I heard that phrase growing up. I still don't know what it means, but it's a fun phrase to say, cuter than a bug's ear. So here they're promoting the Viking Husqvarna free arm rotary, another brand new model from Sweden. And isn't she beautiful? Look at her hairstyle. You can just tell that, again, this kind of came on the scene, the earliest version of the Class 8, late 1950s. Yeah, she looks like she's probably from the 50s. Plus, she's wearing the pearls. The pearls were so popular back in the 1950s and the 60s, for that matter. And there you're seeing Paula's machine right on this brochure with all the modern refinements for straight stitch sewing its best, at its best. I think it's, yeah, this brochure is original, so obviously it has a little bit of a flaw there. Yeah, just got to look at the rest of this because I haven't looked at this in a while. Yep, original material. I should get a copy of this before I send this off with the machine because it's the only copy I have. Take the Viking Husqvarna free arm rotary. Okay, we'll do that. Here's their features and benefits, as we used to say. So right there with bullet point number 1, a really attractive appearance. I don't think anybody would dispute that. The very latest design. Had an arm molded in one piece from thin cast iron. Makes the machine as light as aluminum, strong as iron itself. I don't know if that's completely accurate. If they cast it so it's super thin cast iron, I mean, it's still iron. But is it as light as aluminum? I don't know if I buy that, because aluminum, I believe, is going to be about generally 33% lighter than steel or iron. So, I don't know about that. Jam-proof rotating shuttle, yep. World patented, no oiling needed. I don't agree with that. Built-in reduction gear. Yeah, we tested that already. It works beautifully. Premier foot release, quick release. Yep, we'll look at that. Easily adjusted thread tension. Okay. Conveniently shaped foot control gives smooth starting and enables you to adjust easily for 2 speed required. 2 speed required. And if we kind of look down at the carpet where the foot controller is, this is the speed style foot controller that I oftentimes refer to right here. It's an original Husqvarna speed style controller. And it really is generally a very nice foot controller to have the ability to really meter out power. But again, if you're going to be using your Husqvarna for a lot of free motion type, yes, those are my slippers, for a lot of free motion type quilting, this is not the best foot controller to have. Once I got Annette her Swedish Beauty, the Green Goddess, I wasn't aware when I prepared the machine for her that she was going to be doing a lot of heavy free motion quilting. And these foot controllers, because they're built with capacitors, resistors, and they don't generally have real good ventilation to allow heat to escape. If you use these for a lot of slow regulated sewing without using the slow gear, they're going to have a tendency to overheat and will go into meltdown. So that's when, if you're looking at using a Swedish Beauty like this for a lot of free motion quilting, you'll want to look at, if you're getting the machine from me, you'll want to let me know that. And then what I'll do is I'll probably replace this original Swedish style foot controller with probably an electronic style foot controller that's not going to have the same carbon-based regulating type features that tend to overheat. Yeah. All right. And if that made no sense at all, give Annette a call and she will explain to you what we went through as we were getting things resolved for her. It was a couple-step process, that's for sure. But she is worth it. All my customers are worth it. Absolutely. All right, let me plug the camera back in before I forget. We'll pick out a little bit more music. I'll get that brochure off the top of Paula's machine because she's saying, hey, I can't see my machine. Move that. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Somebody is persistently calling me, so I just rejected it, or whatever they call it. Yeah. All right, so that was, I think the last one we did was called Court of the Queen. And the next one we're doing is called Royale. Royale. So let's hear what that sounds like. All right, so far, just to kind of show you, so far on camera, this is what we've shown so far. Now for most folks that would be enough. We did the protected full grain leather, we did the elk hide, we did the single layer of vegan leather, we did the 2 layers of vegan leather, and then we just did 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. That's what it looks like, folks. That would be more than enough for most people that were doing something similar to what I do, but certainly not at this level. Again, no one in the world that I know of has a 126-step process to optimize a Swedish Beauty before it's allowed to leave the workshop. That's what I do. So let's put those to the rear. Plus, just to remind you, with the same needle, we also did this sewing as well, off camera. 2 layers of genuine cowhide. And then also a single layer of genuine cowhide as well, where I was really pressing that stitch length to get into the satin range over here. You can see how tiny that is. That's our satin range, all the way to a larger range on what would be my left. Yeah. But again, I've got a lot of faith in my Schmetz needles, and I've got even more faith in my machines that I've optimized. So we're just going to keep pressing it. I've got upholstery type material, I've got compressed felt, I've got acrylic fiber, and I've got denim as well that we can still sew. I don't know if we'll sew all of that, but we're going to sew more than we have right now. Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of a boring song. That was kind of disappointing. Didn't have a lot of spark to it. So now we're going to try a song called Fond Memories. Fond Memories. Oh, you know what? I just realized my air compressor's on. Let me shut that off before that goes off randomly. I actually caught it in advance this time. So Fond Memories. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. What do you think, Your Majesty? And I apologize, I didn't even bring you out where everybody can see you and where you can be here as a part of the process of this final evaluation of your Swedish Beauty. I apologize for that. That was really rude. Yeah, and if you're brand new to this channel, this is His Majesty the King, and he represents the King of Sweden that issued a decree where they first started a drilling and grinding plant. They were making musket barrels, stuff like that. And then right around 1872, they made their first Swedish Beauty sewing machine to wow the world. Right, Your Majesty? Yeah. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. All right, so let's lock in on that. I actually locked the camera this time. Gonna do a quick wipe off on the bed because, hey, it's a Swedish Beauty. All right, let's do our next sew off, which is going to be, oh, what is it going to be? Why don't we do some of this commercial upholstery material, this stuff right here. You've seen this before on this channel. Just look at that stuff. You can tell right away that this stuff is built like a tank and it's designed to stand up against anything, even your grandchildren. Your grandchildren cannot destroy this. They could try, but they're not going to be successful. So we've got 2 layers to start. If I fold it in the middle, it's going to get us up to 4 layers. And then if I fold it one more time, it's going to get us all the way up to 6 layers. I'm just trying to group it together here so I've got a semblance of order. There you go. There's 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. I know. It's crazy. It's insane. It's what we do best. I'm just going to check my fold here. Yeah, I like that fold. That's looking pretty good. All right, so let's get this underneath the presser foot. Again, we've got the hyperextension if we need it. And we might. This is some real thick stuff. And we're going to do our best to go down and around. And again, I probably will employ the slow gear because it's going to allow me to control that speed better without having to really meter out that foot controller. So, all right, here we go. 6 layers of commercial upholstery material, guaranteed to be able to stand up against your grandchildren or your kids. Yeah, absolutely. All right, here we go. That is, wow. You can even hear that slow gear working, saying, "What are you doing to me, Scott? What are you doing?" And I'm going to stop there just because the pattern and the coloring, the design on here, if I go much further over, it's going to make it really difficult to see that stitching. So I'm going to have to turn it right there. And we'll kind of go right down that edge that you can see right here. We'll go right down that edge. And then we'll still be able to see, hopefully we'll still be able to see the stitching. All right, here we go. Down to the finish. I am not going to close the box. Here we go. Now you can hear that machine working, but it's not a strain working. It's not like, you know, those, let's just say it, it's not like those plastic machines and machines that have not gone through my process where they just sound like they're about ready to blow up. This one is just going, it's like doubling down. It's just like, okay, let's rock, let's do this, let's get it done. That's what this machine is saying. Because it's not straining the machine, but it's definitely working the machine when you get to this level. 6 layers, again, of commercial grade upholstery material like this is just like that 6 layers of commercial canvas. We're sewing at a level, look at that. We're sewing at a level well beyond what most people doing household or even business style sewing would typically be doing. Unless they move from there, say, into the light industrial or the lower end of the commercial type space. I mean, that is crazy. That's probably as thick as an Oreo. Seriously. That's terrifying. Matter of fact, let's check it. Hold on. Again, we're very serious on this channel. It's all about being serious. So let's see if that's about as thick as an Oreo. Plus then I get to eat the Oreo, which is really kind of a cool perk of the job. Yeah, that's as thick as an Oreo, folks. Can you see that? You see that in the shot, sort of? Yeah. So we just sewed the equivalent of 6 layers of commercial upholstery material, or we just sewed through the equivalent of an Oreo, which, yeah, it's gone now. Oh well. Oh, look. So 6 layers. Wait, hold on a second. Wait. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. Okay. So here, we're looking at an Oreo thickness of commercial upholstery material. 6 layers of this stuff. We're going to look at the top stitch first, then we're going to turn this around and we'll look at the lock stitch. Okay? Oh, that was... You know what? There's just certain points in the day where the transformative powers of an Oreo go well beyond what words can express. And look at these stitches, folks. Page 34, first edition. Wow! Wow! Holy gumdrops! Holy Oreos! So there's our totality of stitching. 6 layers again of commercial grade upholstery material. Guaranteed to be able to stand up against your grandkids, your kids, the neighbor kids that are so, I mean, they're almost evil. They could not destroy this stuff. They could not destroy it. Now they could destroy the Oreos, but yeah, we know where to hide those, don't we? So let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch. There's our lock stitch for 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. Again, the same thickness as an Oreo. The same thickness as an Oreo, folks. Unbelievable. I don't have that angle quite enough. Hold on a second. There we go. A little bit more of an angle. Let's try that again. Matter of fact, we'll go bottom top. Wow. Wow. Oh, what? Even on the end there, where we block it off and we head back down the other side, is just absolutely spot on. Wow. Folks, that is spot on. That is absolutely spot on. We come out and look at the totality of the stitching again. This is our lock stitch, which again, going through this many layers of commercial upholstery material, this is a new level of crazy. And again, if you look at it from the side, that's what we just sewed through. That's what we just sewed through, right there. That's what we just sewed through, right there. 6 layers of this stuff, folks. 6 layers. And not only did we get through it with absolute ease, with Paula's Type 8E, again, this machine sewing at this level does not have a 1.5 amp motor. It's got a 1 amp motor. That's all it needs after I get done with it. Unbelievable. That is a definite pass. If you want to type pass in the chat, as a fellow teacher and say, yep, that's a definite pass, go ahead and do that right now, would you please? Go ahead and do that right now. Or if you want to say, wow, if you want to type page 34, yeah, wow. I'll say wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. Super crazy. All right, let me see if I can pick out another song real quick. All right, quick impromptu quiz. Kind of a little pop quiz in the class here. If you were paying attention at the opening of this, I'll come out on this shot a little bit on Paula's Type 8E, okay? All right, if you were paying attention at the beginning of this class, when I opened it up and you saw the shot of the machine with the Oreos extending across the bed, and then I gave a brief history of the Oreo cookie. When was the first Oreo sold? And don't, you know, if you know it, then type it in. Don't Google it, because then you're kind of cheating. It's not open book. It's not an open book test, folks. Okay, maybe the midterm will be that way, but right now for this pop quiz, you either know it or you don't. So I'm going to give you like 2 seconds to type in the year that the first Oreo was sold, and I'll tell you that it was sold on March 6th, but you have to give me the year. And it was sold to a grocer in Hoboken, New Jersey. New Jersey! See that? I always knew I loved New Jersey. And I don't like to say that all the time, because I know New York people and New Jersey people, they do a lot of head-butting and stuff. They're like arch enemies, but they still love each other, you know, that sort of thing. Kind of like being family. But you know what? If you typed in the chat that the first Oreo was sold on March 6th, which I already told you, but if you typed in 1912, then you get an A for the class today, because that's absolutely spot on. Now, I could ask you the other parts of that as well, like, okay, so the first one was sold in 1912. When did it go from being that first cookie, when it was renamed the Oreo biscuit? Go ahead. All right, if you typed in 1921, you're right. When did they change it from an Oreo biscuit to an Oreo sandwich? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. So from an Oreo biscuit to a sandwich, that was in... You got time. You got plenty of time. All right, you're out of time. 1948. And then finally, they went from the Oreo sandwich in 1948, and the name was changed again to the Oreo cream sandwich. And then the last year there was a change made was what year? In this year, it became the Oreo chocolate sandwich cookie, which supposedly is what they still call it today. I just call it yum. But that was 1974. So the key dates again, if you're ever on like a Jeopardy program and you could win millions of dollars and they start asking you about Oreos, you're going to be set. Because you could say, yep, the first Oreo was sold in 1912, March 6th, if you want to be real specific, to a grocer in Hoboken, New Jersey. Then the Oreo biscuit was renamed in 1921 to Oreo sandwich. And then in 1948, the name was changed to Oreo cream sandwich. And then finally in 1974, it became the Oreo chocolate sandwich cookie. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Now you know everything you wanted to know about the Oreo. One of my favorite. Wow. Yeah, I love them. Plus, you know how many Oreos. Type this in the chat. If you didn't get any of those right, here's your chance to redeem yourself. In that opening shot in this premiere, I showed Oreos stretched from here all the way to there. How many Oreos were on the bed of Paula's machine? This is really important, folks. This is so important. Hold on. I'm ringing the bell. Don't leave. That's just emphasizing it's really important. How many Oreos were stretched across that bed to show how big the bed was? All right? Now, if you want to get a bonus, everyone's always like, hey, I got that one right. I know that it's blank, but I'm not absolutely sure about what. Remember, Scott measured the size of the Oreo, and then he told us to take it times that number of Oreos that go all the way across the bed to know how big the bed is in millimeters. So do you remember how big an Oreo is in circumference? If I measure it from top to bottom, how big is it in millimeters? That's your bonus question. All right, do you remember? Type it in the chat if you know. How many millimeters is the Oreo from top to bottom? And then you have to take that times the number of Oreos that can fit from here to know how many millimeters that bed is in overall length. Isn't this fun? Yeah. This is the playroom aspect of this channel if you're brand new to this channel. It's a classroom. We learn important stuff. I teach a lot of great things. And as we speak, there's 126 countries that follow this channel because we do fun stuff. But it's also a playroom. We do goofy things. We do silly things. Even the king right now was just doing like a little jiggle. Yeah, he was. Wait, he stopped. Never mind. But it's a playroom and a classroom. And that is the best learning environment that there is, isn't it? You think back to your childhood when you were learning, those classes that were fun, you got more involved, you raised your hand more, you learned more, you remembered more, you felt more inspired by the teacher, right? And that's what we have here. It's a very special place. Hey, if y'all watching right now in this premiere think that we have a special place in this playroom / workshop / classroom, then type something in the chat to indicate that. Would you please? Type something in the chat to say, that's a special place. Something like that. Would you? All right. Oh, yeah, and if you're brand new, that's obviously doesn't need introduction. That's Peter Pan. This is from my dear friend Roz, the Singer vehicle. Also, this is from my dear friend Roz, the Foff vehicle. Yeah. All right. Way off topic. Kind of what I do. All right. So what are we going to sew next? We've got compressed felt. And got a couple other things. I think we have denim. So I think we might do compressed felt and then do denim and then we're going to be done. Yeah. Let's do that. All right. So I'm going to stop right there. Find a little bit of music to put on. Probably. All right. This is called, my voice is cracking. No, it's not called that. My voice is cracking because it's dry. This one is called Heir to the Throne, and while I start this out, I'm going to also get a quick drink of water. So again, this machine that you're looking at on camera right now is going to be heading to Paula. And again, I think she has a beautiful last name. It's called Paula. She's called Paula Mazour from Minnesota. So while I didn't have anyone from Minnesota that ended up donating to support our great cause of the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana, I did recently have the great fortune of meeting Paula Mazour and being able to prepare this Type 8E for her in Minnesota. So there you go. It doesn't always work out on both ends, but as long as it works out on one, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I always love getting new customers from states that I haven't done a lot of business in. I love that. Thank you, Paula. All right, here we go. Let's do our next sew off, which is going to be... No, we're not going to try to sew an Oreo. Not on this edition anyway. No. So let's try to do some of this compressed felt, shall we? The single layer of that right there, I'm going to go ahead and fold it in the middle. Fold it one more time to get us up to 3 layers of compressed felt. That's what it looks like. And again, compressed felt is the only material that I recall that ended up breaking one of my Schmetz needles. So if you initially are, if you're new to this channel and you're initially like, well, gee, what's the big deal about felt? Isn't that what kids use for projects and stuff? Well, they use regular felt for projects in school quite often. It's very popular. But compressed felt is a different animal completely because of the way they process it. It is super duper dense. The weave of it, the material composition of it is a nightmare when it comes to sewing it. It truly is. And I'm going to try sewing it by regulating speed through the foot controller, and we'll go down and around with it. And hopefully I do not break a needle. I hope I don't. Alright, you ready? Here we go. 3 layers of compressed felt. I kind of got crazy there a little bit. Sorry about that. Alright, I'm going to make my turn a little bit early so I don't run out of space. And we'll head down to the finish. And again, this is a material, because of its composition, because of its density, its thickness, this is a material, if you sew a lot of the stuff, you're probably going to want to look at increasing presser foot pressure and maybe even adding a roller foot to the machine so that that material is pressed harder down and more evenly into those feed dogs and you get better feed. Because it is some tricky stuff to sew, it truly is. Alright, here we go. And again, I'm not going to close the box. So you can hear Paula's machine. It is working. It is working. But it's not straining. That really is a key distinction. If you try to sew heavier materials with your machine and it sounds strained, or you're hearing bad things happening on the inside of the machine, number 1, stop sewing. Number 2, get that machine packed up and send it to the workshop so that I can get it running like Paula's. A machine working is okay. A machine straining is not good. Kind of goes back to that old phrase that they used to use for exercising. Remember that? No pain, no gain? That is absolutely a false fallacy. And this comes from a guy that through the military and otherwise has done a lot of exercising, a lot of training. You do not need to have pain to get gain. You do not. Now you might get a little bit sore, especially the day after you do a real heavy exercise. And one of the great secrets of helping with that is eating a banana. Eating a banana the day after you exercise, or even the day of exercise and then the day after as well, if your system can manage that. Because bananas with their potassium are a natural way to basically relax and rebuild muscle that you've strained a little bit. So there's a free tip that has nothing to do with sewing whatsoever. Well, a little bit, sort of. So let's look at this compressed felt and see how Paula's machine did, okay? Start on the top row and kind of go around. And again, this is going to have a real puffy weave to it, so if you're seeing stitches that look like they're different lengths, they really aren't. I saw them up close. But that's just the nature of this fuzzy weave on this compressed felt. There you can really see the consistency on that lower row. It's a little bit clearer to see. And on the end as well. So I'm really pleased with that. Again, we're talking 3 layers of compressed felt, a very tricky material to sew. You can see the pucker factor in the middle there, just showing you how dense of a weave this is. When you sew it, it really kind of pops up on you. And this machine, Paula's Type 8E, did a fabulous job. I'm turning it around now so we can look at that lock stitch. Kind of angle that towards the camera a little bit. Let's take a look at that lock stitch now. Again, 3 layers of compressed felt. A very tricky Very, very hazardous material to be sewing. It loves to break needles. And there, especially on the lock stitch, you can see the consistency and the formation of that stitch is being spot on. Just spot on. Which, you know, again, could indicate to us that maybe we have our upper tension turned up a little bit too high. Because again, the upper tension control is going to regulate our lock stitch. The top stitch is going to be regulated by that bobbin case below. So look at both of them at the same time. Beautiful stitching, even my little weird turn there. So I'm really pleased with that. Sew off the 3 layers of compressed felt. I'm going to go ahead and move that to the rear. And if you agree that that's a pass, then go ahead and type in the chat pass. P-A-S-S. All right, I'm going to throw that to the back. And I'll just real quick show you, I'll move this stitch off holder. Just going to show you real quick what we've sewn so far. Again, I could have stopped a long time ago, and I think I would have proven my point that this Type 8E that's heading to Minnesota is ready to get the job done. But this is what we've done on camera so far today. That's what we've done on camera so far today. We just did the compressed felt, 3 layers of that, 6 layers of commercial upholstery material, 2 layers of protected full grain leather, 2 layers of genuine elk hide, a single layer of the vegan leather. It's a leather vinyl mix, 2 layers of vegan leather, and then finally 6 layers of commercial grade canvas right over here on the end. That's what we've done on camera so far, folks. If that doesn't speak about confidence in my 126-step process for Swedish Beauties, I don't know what does. I mean, that is crazy, isn't it? But that's what you expect to see on this channel. That's why people around the world will reach out to me for a machine, including my good friend Heidi from Switzerland. And her machine is still in process right now. My friend from Paris, France is tracking it. If you do Facebook, you'll want to check out that post, because every day my friend from Paris, France posts an update on Heidi's machine that's heading towards Switzerland. You want to check that out. It's a lot of fun. Although it's not a lot of fun waiting for the Postal Service to give updates. That sometimes is really irritating. If you're watching from the USPS right now, yeah, get it together, folks. Get it together. But that's our sew-offs on camera today, folks. That speaks confidence. That speaks the machine is ready to get the job done. So I think we're really close to the finish line. We might do one more sew-off. Denim is a real popular material for folks to use. So I'm going to kind of put that over by the presser foot. And we'll zoom in on that. We'll probably finish this premiere up by doing some denim. Because a lot of folks are looking to sew denim, more so than acrylic fiber or some of the other more oddity type materials that I will put in front of machines on this channel sometimes. There we go. Let's go right about to there. So we're going to do denim next. It's heavy grade denim like you would find on jeans or something like that. And while I'm getting this set up, I'm going to put on Royal Mountain Breakdown. Royal Mountain Breakdown. Turn my screen around so I can see what you guys see. It kind of feels like a cow country theme, doesn't it? Yee-haw! Yeah, it does. All right, so I'm glad I checked. I thought this was a single layer. It's actually two layers of heavy grade denim. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it once to get us up to 4 layers, and then fold it one more time to get us up to 6 layers of heavy grade denim. I'll kind of pinch it down a little bit so you can see it that way. Folks, that's the thick of thick right there. That's what that is. So let me get that underneath the presser foot, and let's see if we can finish off with this Type 8E by doing 6 layers of heavy grade denim. And I think we'll go back to our slow gear just so we can use it. So I'm going to pull that slow gear out, and let's see if we can sew off these final 6 layers of heavy grade denim. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's some good music right there. That's some good music. You know, some people just really dislike country, and I don't quite understand it, but I don't know, maybe because I was raised on country. All right, let's finish this turn. Again, we're going through 6 layers of heavy grade denim right now. Again, you can hear Paula's machine is working, but it is not straining. It just isn't. Not through any of these sew-offs has it strained. It just gets her done. You know what I mean? It just gets her done. And then what I think we'll do, because we really didn't change stitch length at all during the course of this premiere, I'm going to go down. We'll go ahead and clip our threads, and then I'll do a satin layer stitch down the middle of this. Just kind of bisecting it, if that makes sense. All right, here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and lift our presser foot, get this material out. We'll go ahead and clip the threads, and then we'll do our final stitch off down the middle of it, more in the satin range. In other words, we're going to sew a real teeny tiny little stitch, kind of like on that off-camera sew-off that I showed you. On that off-camera sew-off. All right, let me just give that a clip. Give this a clip. And that a clip. And then we'll look at this when we're done, if that makes sense. We'll go ahead and, I'm not going to show it to you right now. I'm just going to get it in position. We'll buzz down with a satin layer, a satin level type stitch. And this will be our final stitch off. So I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch length down into the close to the satin range, and we'll do this final sew off. And this one has a spring load on it. Let me kind of show that to you. I think it's helpful if you see that too. So as I'm looking at we'll kind of do that there, I think. So as I'm looking at changing stitch length on this Type 8E, it has a spring in it that always returns it down to 4. In other words, right now if I lift it, see that? It pulls it back down. So if I want to get up into the satin range, I've got to turn this little knob in, and at the same time kind of hold this stitch length up so that it's going to screw in and then lock into place. That's the only way you can get it to stay in place. Get it to right about there. I think we're probably high enough up on there. So you can see right now I've locked it in place, and we're right around, probably a little bit over 1, right around 1.5, somewhere in there. So I'm going to go back over to, I'll change the camera shot back over to the needle again, and we're going to buzz down and lay down a satin level type stitch on the material going down. All right, let's lock that in. And we can even sew that on the slow gear if we want. I'll pull the slow gear out. We'll sew that on the slow gear too. All right, so here we go. Our final stitch off on this Type 8E. Again, first established as a Class 8 back right around 1959, and this machine is from the 1960s. I would say probably the latter part of the 1960s. So here we go. Let's get her done. All right, and that's it. So I'm going to take my slow gear off, go ahead and rotate this up. I'll go ahead and return off camera my stitch length back down to 4, because most folks will be using the 4 a lot more than they will be the satin range in most cases. So that'll be all set. Get my presser foot up, and let's go ahead and clip these threads, and then we'll take a look and see what we did. Again, this is not a light sew off. This is going to be 6 layers. 6 layers of heavy grade denim that we just sewed. Okay, so let's get our sew-off holder out. And that should be our top stitch right there, based on the way that I normally will position the material. That should be a fairly good angle. We'll give that a try, see what we can see. So this again is going to be 6 layers of heavy grade denim. We're looking at the top stitch first. And again, this is probably going to be the equivalent of about the thickness of an Oreo as well. We'll have to check that. That'll give me a chance to eat another Oreo too. Alright, so there is our first little row that we did. And I'm going to try to talk less and just kind of guide the camera. I don't know what you're seeing, folks, but that is absolutely spot on. That's absolutely spot on. There's our little turn right there, and again you've got some beautiful stitching there as well. Go across our bottom row. Folks, that is page 34. Oh, I apologize. We didn't even look at that satin level stitch there in the middle, which is super teeny tiny. Might almost have to come off the tripod to see it, but that's real close to that 25 to 30 stitch per inch range right there. Beautiful stitching as well. So we'll come out and look at the totality of stitching right there. I'll get my hand off the camera so you can see it without me jiggling and wiggling it. But that is some beautiful top stitching right there, folks. It truly is. So let me turn this around. Let's look at the lock stitch. Look at this lock stitch and see what we think of that. And I can already tell you what I think. It looks really, really good. Again, the lock stitch is always going to be more of a challenge, and that is just absolutely spot on. Especially there on that turn right there. That is a page 34. Look at that. Let me rewind a little bit and go down that row again the other way. That is a page 34, folks. And again, this is our lock stitch. This is our lock stitch, so it's going to push that threshold up higher as far as difficulty. Especially when you're talking about going through 6 layers of heavy grade denim. That is a serious sew off. It truly is. Now we're going to come down the middle, try to get a clearer picture of that satin level stitch. Again, about 25 to 30 stitches per inch. Yeah, 2 words. Teeny tiny. Teeny tiny. And also fabulous. That's a fabulous satin level stitch. Imagine this on this rotary machine. Imagine how fast that hook needs to be coming around to complete a stitch level like that of 25 to 30 stitches per inch. That hook is working. I mean, it's getting a fever. It's getting a fever. So this again is our lock stitch, which as I look at it from my vantage point and as I looked at it from right over by the machine, that is absolutely spot on. It truly is. It's a page 34, I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed. I guess I shouldn't be because of the amount of time that I spent on Paula's machine, but I still get impressed when I see stitch quality as consistent as this through a wide range of sew-offs. And that's why so many different materials, is because I want to show you, not just a standard sew-off like some people do. They'll put some cotton polyester underneath the presser foot, and that's the extent of what they show you as far as the stitch quality. I've shown you world-class stitching on materials, everything from this 6 layers of heavy grade denim, and I'll come out and show you the other ones that we did as well. Hold on a second, I'll grab it. So this again is what we sewed off on today. Let me come a little bit wider. This is what we sewed off on today during this live premiere. All of that. If you think that we did a decent job of testing Paula's machine after doing all of this live on this premiere, then type something in the chat to indicate that, would you? If you think that this is adequate to show that the machine is ready to get the job done, type something in the chat right now. Because what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing a machine that did 6 layers of heavy grade denim, like a hiccup, 3 layers of compressed felt, like a hiccup, 6 layers of commercial upholstery material with absolute ease, 2 layers of protected full grain leather, no worries, 2 layers of genuine elk hide, like a hiccup again, single layer of vegan style leather, absolutely spot on, 2 layers of vegan style leather, no worries, 6 layers of commercial canvas, and again, just no problem on any of these. It just got the job done. I can't even tell you how many Oreos thick that is. Kind of curious though, a little bit. Tell you what, I'll be a good boy and I'll set them on the bed and I'll grab a couple of Oreos. We'll see how tall that is compared to the Oreos. You can look at that in the camera in the meantime. All right, right about there should be good. All right. So I'm going to guess right around 2 Oreos. Probably right around 2 Oreos. So there's Oreo number 1. Oreo number 2. It's actually a little bit higher than 2 Oreos. It's kind of 2 Oreos and, a couple of crumbs or something. But you get an idea of the thickness of that stack. You can see it in the other shot too. But you're talking about that much of a sew-off, 2 Oreos high, all done live on the channel. Plus, I did these off camera as well. I mean, it just gives you an idea of the level of confirmation sew-offs that a machine has to be able to achieve successfully in order to be able to leave this workshop and head towards that customer. No one else in the world uses Oreos. No one else in the world puts their machines to this much of a test to confirm that that machine is ready to get the job done than I do. And that's why I always say to folks, don't go to eBay and expect to find a machine that can do this. Don't go to Facebook Marketplace or Etsy or Pinterest or any of those other great sites and expect to buy a machine from a person that probably hasn't even serviced it. Maybe put a little bit of oil in the machine, but hasn't serviced it at all compared to what I've done for Paula's machine. Again, 126 steps to get this machine ready for this premiere today. 126 steps. You compare that to even taking a Swedish beauty into a professional sewing center or service center, they're going to do maybe 10 steps during the 30 minutes to 45 minutes that they have it in their workshop. It's not even comparable. It's apples and oranges. It's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and bananas. It's like bananas and watermelons. I mean, it's that different. It truly is. So yeah, I mean, that's the difference. That's the difference of coming to this workshop. It might cost you a little bit more on the front end, but to have a machine that has been perfected from bobbing the balance wheel, has gone through a 126-step process, you're not going to find a better Swedish beauty anywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world. And even my friend Hans, who lives in Norway, says the same thing. He's seen my process. He's seen the results of my process, and he's like, there's no better machines in the world, Scott. There's no better machines. So, I mean, that's to get that from Hans right next door to Sweden, where these machines were made, that is a huge compliment and a huge validation that I'm doing things right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, there you go. Paula, your machine is ready to start heading towards Minnesota. So I'm going to take that next step and see if we can get this machine shipped pretty quick. And there may be a slight delay because I'm going to be including an original manual with your machine as well. And this is the only one that I have, and I always like to have a copy of manuals in case I get another machine like this in and it doesn't have the manual. You know what I mean? Because these are not readily found on, you can't Google and say, give me a free copy of a Type 8E manual. Give me a free copy of a Class 8 manual. Not going to happen. So it may take me a couple extra days of delaying shipping so that I can get a copy of this really cool manual, this original manual, and have it in reserve in case I get another one of these in, and I can use it as a resource for that customer as well. So, all right. Well, I appreciate y'all watching. If one or all of you watching are ones that donated to help out the History Museum, again, you are one of those heroes for history that made it possible for us in 10 days to raise over $10,000. That's more than $1,000 a day that we were able to raise for the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana. So if you're one of those heroes for history, you are the best of the best. If you didn't donate to the last fundraiser to help out the History Museum, then keep watch, because inevitably we're going to do another fundraiser for another worthy cause. And if you're paying attention, you'll be able to become my next hero for that cause. There's so many great causes out there. There's so many great causes, and it's sometimes really a challenge to say, well, which one do we pick? Which one do we go with? And I've got one in mind for when we hit the next major milestone, which is 15,000 subscribers. And I've already talked to Sonny and Craig about that. But maybe we'll do another cause somewhere in between where we're at right now and hitting that next major milestone of 15,000. So if you have some strong feelings or opinions on, let me get into this shot. If you have some strong feelings or opinions on what the next fundraising cause could be, where am I? There I am. So if you have an opinion as far as what the next fundraising cause can be, maybe between 10,000 subscribers. We're actually at like 10,000, almost 10,200 subscribers right now. So we're quickly starting to work our way towards 11,000 subscribers. Certainly we'll do a major contest when we hit 11,000. I always do it every 1,000 subscribers. So we'll do one at 11,000, 12,000, 13,000, 14,000. And then when we hit 15,000, we're, in all likelihood, I'm going to do a giveaway contest with a fundraiser to help out our four-legged friends. Because if you don't know yet, you should. Sonny and Craig out in Pennsylvania, they are very passionately involved with the cause of helping our furry friends. So that's going to be our contest, giveaway, fundraiser, blah, 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 when we hit 15,000 subscribers. So the more people you can, point towards this YouTube channel, also the thousands, actually correction, the tens of thousands of you that visit this channel every month and never click subscribe, you could get us there in a hiccup. If you just took a second, excuse me, if you just took a second and subscribe to this channel. Because I can look at the analytics, I can look at the stats, and I can tell you that we get, on average, between 40 to 80,000 unique visits every month. And yet our count right now is just a little bit over 10,000. So if all of you that came to the channel every month took a microsecond to click subscribe, click, 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 we would be at 15,000 in a matter of blink twice, we're there. Probably blink once. So would you consider doing that, please? I don't reach out to you. I don't sell your name. I don't even bother you. But it would be so incredible if, a fraction of you, if not all of you, that are not subscribed and watching these premieres and watching these videos that are uploaded to this channel all the time, if you would take a second and subscribe, click, click, we would be growing exponentially beyond where we are right now. And I'm not taking away from the fact that we're over 10,000 for a vintage sewing machine niche space. That is incredible. But you could make us crazy incredible by just taking a few seconds and clicking subscribe. So please consider doing that, and thank you. All right, so Paula, this is your amazing Viking Husqvarna Type 8E, what I would consider to be a rare machine. And if you remember, when I first started talking about this type of machine, Hans as well, who again is right in Norway, right next door to Sweden, he said, Scott, we cannot find these machines over here in the Scandinavian space, in Norway, in Sweden, in that neck of the woods. They can't find a machine like this one right here. They're that rare. And that's over there where they made them. So I'm hoping to have the opportunity to have more Type 8Es, or even the earlier version of this, a Class 8, which is kind of like it's basically an 8E. It's not a Type 8E. I would love to have those, one of the first ones that came out, say, in 1959. That would be cool. So if you have one and you want to get it running at the top of its game like you saw Paula's do today, then contact me. Let's make it happen. Let's get it to the workshop. I get machines every week from all across the country and even from around the world. So I would love to get your machine into the workshop and then get it back to you and just give you a new appreciation for what that machine is capable of doing. I mean, that's really what it's all about, isn't it? It's not just squeaking by. It's having a machine like Paula's that anything you put in front of that machine, just like you witnessed today in this live premiere, it's going to get it. It's going to get it done. It's going to get the job done. And not, not a good day, a bad day. Like some people will sit down to their machines and it's almost like a roll of the dice, and they're like, I wonder if it's going to be a good day with my machine or a bad day. I wonder if if the tension is going to be on or off. I wonder if I'm going to get needles breaking or not breaking. I wonder if the material is going to feed or not feed. Don't go through that headache. There's enough stress in life, for goodness sakes. send your machine. Let me get it to that top game level. Or if you don't have a machine and you're looking to get a machine, and let's say you're looking to get a green machine similar to Paula's, but maybe you want to get some of the more, get some of those cam features with it as well, reach out to me. I'm a very non-threatening person. I don't push anybody to buy. I'm not a car salesman. I'm a vintage sewing machine aficionado. That means I believe enough in what I do, and I have enough confidence that when I talk to someone, I already know that I'm going to give them the best machine in the world. It's up to them then. And I'll say to people usually as we talk, if I can tell that they're either looking at the budget aspect, the cost of it, or they're weighing other factors, I always just say, take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Reach out when you're ready, and I'll take care of you. And you're never, ever, ever going to regret that decision of having bought a machine from this workshop. All right. Well, God bless you guys. Look for other great premieres like this. And click subscribe, would you? Click. It's real simple. All right. Y'all take care. And thanks again, Paula. Thank you for the opportunity of preparing this machine for you. And I'll be getting her shipped off to you pretty quick, heading to the great state, our neighboring state of Minnesota. All right. Bye now.